The moral requirements of our public officials and government overall. Did you know that moral requirements of our public officials are specified in our laws? The Declaration of Rights. The Bills and Declaration of Rights are the highest laws in America. They are to be adhered to by all public officials as they swore to uphold the constitutions by their oaths of office. Did you know that these Declaration of Rights give explicit instructions regarding the necessary character traits required for public officials? The declarations also state how government should function in regards to their interactions with we, the people. Quality of character. The quality of government is a reflection of the character traits of those individuals elected as public officers. If you want an honest government, you need honest individuals who adhere to truth and justice as public officers. If the individuals are reckless and corrupt, you will have a reckless and corrupt government. The social virtues of our elected officials was a key concern of the Founding Fathers. James Garfield, he was the 20th President of the United States. He said, "Now more than ever, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt, it is because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it is because the people demand these high qualities to represent them in the national legislature. If the next centennial does not find us a great nation, it will be because those who represent the enterprise, the culture, and the morality of the nation do not aid in controlling the political forces." Social virtues inculcated. Inculcated means impressed or enforced by frequent admonitions, and to admonish means to warn or notify of a fault, to instruct or direct. So this is from the New Hampshire Constitution, Part the First, which is the Bill of Rights, Article 38, and it's entitled Social Virtues Inculcated. A frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution and a constant adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, frugality, and all the social virtues are indispensably necessary to preserve the blessings of liberty and good government. The people ought, therefore, to have a particular regard to all those principles in the choice of their officers and representatives, and they have a right to require of their lawgivers and magistrates an exact and constant observance of them in the formation and execution of the laws necessary for the good administration of government. And exact means pinpoint precision, so it cannot be vague or they can't fudge. It has to be pinpoint precision, exact. Definitions. Virtue means moral goodness, the practice of moral duties from sincere love to God and His laws, voluntary obedience to truth. Moral means relating to the practice, manners, or conduct of men as social beings in relation to each other and with reference to right and wrong. Conform to rules of right or to the divine law respecting social duties, virtuous. Moral law is the law of God which prescribes the moral or social duties and prohibits the transgressions of them. Divine law or the law of God is found in the Christian Bible, so that's what it's referring to. And this is from Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary. A firm adherence to justice. In the Vermont Constitution, Chapter 1, Article 18, says regard to fundamental principles and virtues necessary to preserve liberty. That frequent recurrence to fundamental principles and a firm adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, and frugality are absolutely necessary to preserve the blessings of liberty and keep government free. The people ought, therefore, to pay particular attention to these points in the choice of officers and representatives, and have a right in a legal way to exact a due and constant regard to them from their legislators and magistrates in making and executing such laws as are necessary for the good government of the state. So remember, this is law, and in the law they're saying that our public officials must adhere to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, and frugality. And we, the people, have a legal right to exact a due and constant regard to them. Morality and piety. This is from the New Hampshire Constitution, Part the First, Article 6, stating morality and piety. As morality and piety, rightly grounded on high principles, will give the best and greatest security to government, and will lay in the hearts of men the strongest obligations to due subjection, and as the knowledge of these is most likely to be propagated through a society, therefore, the several parishes, bodies, corporate, or religious societies shall at all times have the right of electing their own teachers and of contracting with them for their support or maintenance, or both. But no person shall ever be compelled to pay towards the support of the schools of any sect or denomination, and every person, denomination, or sect shall be equally under the protection of the law, and no subordination of any one sect, denomination, or persuasion to another shall ever be established. And piety means reverence of the Supreme Being, God, and love of His character. So when it's referring to piety, it's saying that they have reference to God, the Supreme Being, and love for His character. So that is a character trait they are saying is required for our public officials. Necessary. In the Massachusetts Constitution, Part the First, Article 18, it says, a frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution and a constant adherence to those of piety, justice, moderation, temperance, industry, and frugality are absolutely necessary to preserve the advantages of liberty and to maintain a free government. The people ought consequently to have a particular attention to all those principles in the choice of their officers and representatives, and they have a right to require of their lawgivers and magistrates an exact and constant observance of them in the formation and execution of the laws necessary for the good administration of the Commonwealth. And necessary means that must be, that cannot be otherwise, indispensably requisite. So it has to happen. So we are supposed to, being the people, require of our legislators and lawgivers exact observance in the execution of the laws. And we have not witnessed that within the last 2 years. All public officials should have a firm adherence to justice, which is conformity to the laws, honesty, and integrity; moderation, which means limited in quantity; temperance, patience; industry means diligence to employment; frugality means sparing use or appropriation of money or commodities. We certainly haven't witnessed that within the last 2 years. Social virtues, rules of right, God's law, absolute truth; piety, reverence of the Supreme Being, God, and love of His character; morality, conform to rules of right or to the divine law respecting social duties, virtuous; fundamental principles, as pertaining to the foundation or basis, the source or origin of anything, like our bills and declarations of rights, our constitutions, the Declaration of Independence, the letters from the Founding Fathers. All of those things would be the foundation or basis for our laws. And these are all stated in the Bills and Declarations of Rights, which is the highest law in America. George Washington, he was the first president of the United States, said, of all the habits and dispositions which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. Intoxication. Now this one will surprise many of you. In the Oklahoma Constitution, Article 2, Section 11, entitled Officers' Personal Attention to Duties, Intoxication. Every person elected or appointed to any office or employment of trust or profit under the laws of the state or under any ordinance of any municipality thereof shall give personal attention to the duties of the office to which he is elected or appointed. Drunkenness and the excessive use of intoxicating liquors while in office shall constitute sufficient cause for impeachment or removal thereof. So that is a law in our Bill and Declarations of Rights. And remember, all the bills and declarations of rights apply equally to all Americans. And the reason it says trust there is it's referring to their trust agreements. When someone is elected into office, they become an indentured trustee. They are bound by the Constitution. So that's why it's referring to trust. John Adams said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." Government must be open, accessible, accountable, and responsive. In the New Hampshire Constitution, Part the First, Article 8, entitled Accountability of Magistrates and Officers, Public's Right to Know. All power residing originally in and being derived from the people, all the magistrates and officers of government are their substitutes and agents, and at all times accountable to them. Government, therefore, should be open, accessible, accountable, and responsive. To that end, the public's right of access to governmental proceedings and records shall not be unreasonably restricted. The public also has a right to an orderly, lawful, and accountable government. Therefore, any individual taxpayer eligible to vote in the state shall have standing to petition the Superior Court to declare whether the state or political subdivision in which the taxpayer resides has spent or has approved spending public funds in violation of a law, ordinance, or constitutional provision. In such a case, the taxpayer shall not have to demonstrate that his or her personal rights were impaired or prejudiced beyond his or her status as a taxpayer. However, this right shall not apply when the challenged governmental action is the subject of a judicial or administrative decision from which there is a right of appeal by statute or otherwise by the parties to that proceeding. So our government should be open, accessible, accountable, and responsive to the people, and the people have a right of access to government proceedings and records, and it should not be unreasonably restricted. And we certainly haven't experienced that over the last several years either, have we? Government's requirements by law. Government is required to be open, accessible, accountable, responsive, orderly, lawful. The people have a right to access government proceedings and records without unreasonable restrictions, to petition the Superior Court to declare whether the state or political subdivision has approved spending public funds in violation of a law, ordinance, or constitutional provision. You see, we have full rights to know what the government is doing because the government works for us. Summation. The people have a right, in a legal way, to require of their legislators and magistrates an exact and constant adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, frugality, and all the social virtues in making and executing such laws as are necessary for the good government of the states and nation. The people have a legal right to require exact adherence of their public officials to be moral and virtuous in all their dealings. Their obedience to truth is required. Drunkenness or excessive use of alcohol is a means for impeachment by law. Our government is required by law to be open, accessible, accountable, orderly, and lawful. It is the duty of the people to elect virtuous people and to ensure that social virtues are enforced by frequent notices or instructions to public officials regarding their faults. Thank you for listening. I hope you have learned something new. Please share this with others. Many people need to know this. Thank you.